And we're live! Welcome to another edition of RockSim Live. It is January 9th, 2026. So this is our second episode of the year. So thanks for coming. It is, we had a snowstorm last night. I had about 8 inches of snow at my house, and it was hard to get in, but I made it. And about half of our staff made it. So we're running on a reduced staff today. But we are here, we are answering the phones, and we are doing RockSim Live. So thank you for being here. It's probably not snowing where you are, but it is snowing here. It's done snowing, but we got to dig ourselves out. And it's supposed to be a nice weekend, 37 tomorrow, and sunny, so a lot of it will melt off, which is fine with me. We need the moisture, but my back doesn't need the snow. Okay, so this is RockSim Live, where we talk about RockSim, RockSim Pro, and the Launch Visualizer, and answering your questions about rocketry. I do have the chat going right now, so I need your questions because that's what we're going to talk about. I don't have any agenda except for what you want to talk about. So we will go to the chat right now and see what people are saying. Let me make this screen on this side a little smaller. I got my chat window over here, and we have Wildcard Rockets, and he says they're from Colorado Springs. And we have Curtis Howe from Michigan is here saying hello. And Wildcard Rocket says, what is your favorite model rocket that you made? My favorite by Apogee is, there's no punctuation here. So, what is your favorite model rocket? Okay. And the rocket that you made, my favorite by Apogee, is the Mako. So he says his is the Mako. We've been selling a lot of Makos recently. That was like, people have really noticed as they were pulling things off the shelf that the Mako is flying out the door. So my favorite rocket is always the next one. So I was, Martin is making some really great rockets, and those are always my favorite because it's always the next one. So one of my favorites from past years is this one right here, the Nike Hercules. This is like I just enjoy this one so much. It's such a fun rocket to fly because it's a cluster of 4. So you get a lot of smoke and a lot of fire. And then it's a 2-stage rocket. And not only is it a 2-stage rocket, but the upper stage has to be controlled by electronics. So you got that going for you too. So it's got a lot of stuff going on. Plus it's got so much, what do they call it in Star Wars? The groobles or whatever they put on the outside of the rocket. I just call it gingerbread. Lots of stuff on the outside of the rocket that just looks, it's just like it's an eye magnet. It just draws your eye and you want to go deeper and deeper into it. I like rockets like that. I like rockets that have good engineering to them. I'll show you what I've been working on personally. Let me bring up the Apogee website here and change my screen. Computer screen. Okay, so here's the Apogee website. ApogeeRockets.com is the URL. And what I just released this week was the Gyrochaser. So this is an older rocket, but I redesigned it in the last couple of months. And so I gave it a new nose cone. And one of the big reason is I'm trying to phase out and I don't want to say this too loud, but vacuform nose cones. It's just they are just so hard to make, and the amount of scrap and rejects that we have is pretty high, and so they're not really cost effective. So with this one, I made a 3D printed nose cone, and so it's 3D printed, but the big thing is a 3D printed hub. And this is the back end of the hub, and you can see everything is 3D printed. And that just made this rocket just like so easy to build. The only reason it's a skill level 4 now is you see these blades right here, and you can see they're curved. And so the part of the build that is a skill level 4 skill is curling those blades. And it's not hard, you just soak them with ammonia and water. It's like a 50-50 mix of ammonia, household cleaner, and water. And what it does is it softens the glue inside the wood. And once it's soft, it's really flexible. And then you just roll it around a dowel and you wrap it with cloth and let it dry. And the cloth allows the moisture to wick out and to evaporate off. And depending on how humid it is around where you are, it could be dry within a couple hours or might be overnight. And then when you remove the cloth, the blades are curled. And it doesn't take 5 minutes to do, but it takes an hour to several hours for it to dry. So, you know, you're waiting around just for it to dry. But once you get them curled, that's it. That's all you got to do. And then you just glue them onto these rotor hinge arms. And with the 3D printed hubs, it just goes together. I mean, if you weren't waiting for the blades to dry, you could build it easily in an hour. Yeah. And it flies great. It's like, it's so much more precise. Previously, this was laser cut, and it was pretty good. But the laser cutting, you know, you had separate hinge pins and everything had to be glued just perfect. This, there's just like 3 drops of glue on the pins to hold them in, and a drop of glue on the shaft right here where it meets this piece, and then once inside the nose cone. And it's all self-aligning. And yeah, it just goes together so fast. And the rest of the rocket, you know, is great. You know, and the blades, they curl up and they go inside the tube. And when it comes out, it just springs open. So I like this rocket because of the engineering involved. Well, I had to redesign this hub. It took me a while to get it right. And I just like, it's so simple. It's just so simple once you got it done. Yeah, so that's kind of what it looks like. So this was released this week, I think it was. With the new hub. And there's the new hub and the pins that go with it. And it's all 3D printed. So the cool thing is, you know, we made the kit better, but we didn't have to increase the price at all. We were able to keep it the same price, which I was really happy about. It still has some laser cut parts, but they're just the few parts. You know, you got your blades and your fins, and these are the hinge arms. And the hinge arms, they need to be strong because it takes a lot of force. So we kept them as plywood. But everything else, pretty easy peasy. Yes, and I'm glad you like the Mako. For those of you that don't know what the Mako is, when you go here, we got 2 versions. We got the Mako and the Mega Mako. The Mako came out first. This is a 3-inch diameter rocket, and you can see how big it is. We made several different versions. So it's like, this is like a kit you can modify. We designed it so you could modify it. And so all these, they look the same on the outside, but on the inside, they're all a little bit different. So that's kind of what it looks like launching. Let's see if I can find the mods for you. Just going through the images. Yeah, these are just like the basic parts. Okay, so I'm just looking for, okay, so here's the mods. You can add, it comes standard with a 29, but you can upgrade it to a 38. You can add bigger fins. Like we recommend you add the bigger fins when you upgrade the motor mount because it's going to be moving the center of gravity back, which is destabilizing. So we give you bigger fins. We recommend bigger fins. But so that's an option. You can do dual deployment with an eBay. You can put a shock cord anchor inside the nose cone, and that would be for doing dual deployment out of the nose cone. You can also add a 3-engine engine mount or a 2-engine engine mount. You could put an eBay in the nose cone. So that's kind of like how we developed that Mako. And so it's starting to take off now. So if you want a good rocket that you can modify, and a lot of people like to modify rockets, that one would be a great one. We have Gino145 from Boise, Idaho. Well, thank you, Gino. Welcome to here. Gold Spot, also from Colorado Springs. Sturko3 says, on high-power rocket launch, say the Katana, do you favor the speed off the rail or a 5-to-1 thrust ratio, which RockSim gives both? Okay, so what he is talking about, this is a RockSim question. So let's open up the, what did he say, the Katana? Katana. Okay, so let's go file, open, and let's see if we've got a Katana here. Katana rocket. No, I don't say. Okay, so here's the Katana. Oh, okay, so I'm noticing right now that the center of gravity is way up here. That kind of tells me something's weird. So that's the mass override. So it tells me that if I see the center of gravity up here, I always want to go to my mass override tab. And this is checked, so we're going to uncheck it. And now it moves back to where it should be. Okay, so let's load a motor in this and run a simple simulation. Show only engines that match the motor mount diameter. Let's go with, I want to do a low thrust motor. Let's try Cicerone. Let's see if there's something a little bit smaller. Hypertech Cicerone. I want a J, Aerotech J135. And let's make it a 14-second delay. I always choose the longest delay to get started. And let's see where we're launching from. Okay, so this is dual deployment. So we have, I assume this is the drogue because that's a pretty big chute. So we'll deploy this one at Apogee and then this one at an altitude. And we'll say the altitude is 500 feet. Starting state. Oh, we got to make this an 8-foot long launch rod. Oops. And it's launching straight up. Launch conditions. We're at a pretty low altitude. I'm not sure where this is. We'll find out here in just a second. When we launch it, okay, so it ran the simulation. So his question is, do we look, so we're looking at, he's talking about liftoff speed off the rail or a 5-to-1 thrust ratio. Okay, so what we're looking for in the columns here is velocity at launch guide departure, which is this column right here. So this rocket with a J135 leaves the launch pad at 30.64 miles per hour. And that 30 miles an hour is kind of like my threshold for it's going to fly okay. It's going fast enough where the fins can be effective. And the other thing that he mentions is the thrust to weight ratio. So right now it's not showing that thrust to weight ratio, but if you right click on the column header and then come down here to organize columns, you can find the thrust to weight ratio. And this is at launch guide departure. So we'll click OK and then find that last one that we just did. Yeah, so this one right here. And so this is the thrust to weight ratio at launch guide departure. Let me move this column right there. So to move columns around, you just click and drag the column header. So I just wanted the both of them like right next to each other. And it's okay. So this is the one that we're comparing. So his question is, which one do I prefer? Velocity at launch guide departure or thrust to weight ratio? Personally, I like to look at this one right here, and this is my preference. I know there's a lot of RSOs out there that look at the thrust to weight ratio, but the thrust to weight ratio that they look at is not at launch guide departure. They just look at the maximum thrust to weight ratio, which may or may not occur when the rocket leaves the rail. I like to know what the speed is when the rocket's leaving the rail, because it can be deceiving. And that's why we choose to display the thrust to weight ratio at launch guide departure, because when it goes free, once it leaves the pad, that is typically the slowest that the rocket is that's unguided. And so I like to use this number, but I know a lot of people like to use this, but this number is important when it leaves the pad. If you have more questions about that, go ahead and put it in the chat. Gino 145 says, standard dual deploy or head end, advantages and disadvantages. When RockSim, just the parts where they go. Okay, so head end dual deployment. Like this Mako. Okay, so we created this shock cord anchor. It goes inside a 3-inch nose cone. Let me click on it and see if I got a picture of it. Okay, so here's a sketch of a 3-inch nose cone. And this is actually the Nike Hercules, and we actually use this bulkhead inside the Nike Hercules because this goes like it's positioned way up here at the front. And what that allows you to do is to put a parachute inside the back end of the nose cone. And that is typically how head end dual deployment works. I swear, what was it that I was doing where I was doing head end dual deployment? Let's see if I got an article about it. How to and guides. We want to go to Peak of Flight newsletter, all newsletters. Maybe I did a video. Head end. Nope, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to do a find on this page. Head end. And I don't see it on that page, so maybe it was a video. Advanced construction videos, all videos. Do a find. Head end. Okay, head-end dual deployment. What is it and how can you use it? So let me click on this video. And I don't want to play the video. So this is video number 437. So if you go to the video, advanced construction video, so if you go to how-to and guides, advanced construction videos, and then you go to all videos, you click over here, and it takes you to this page right here. And then you want to scroll down. You see the numbers right here. Scroll down to, was it 437. And then when you click on that, it'll take you to the video. And so basically, head-end dual deployment is we're going to use the volume inside the nose cone for a parachute. And so you are going to need some kind of bulkhead up in the front. So our 3-inch nose cone, which I was showing you, you can cut the back off and you can put in a new bulkhead up in the front. And then you can take a eBay, and this is our 3-inch eBay kit. So let me go here. 3-inch eBay kit. Okay, so you can take this eBay kit, right there, that's what it looks like. And you can put it, there's enough room where you can slide the front end of the tube coupler into the nose cone and still have room in front of that for a parachute. So basically, it's a traditional dual deployment. You have an eBay, but half of the eBay goes inside the nose cone and the other half goes inside the tube. So this would work really well on a kit like the Mako, or it would work on the Invicta, any of our 3-inch kits that it would work on. So he's asking about, so the difference between head end and standard dual deploy is just kind of like the position of the eBay. So right now we have an eBay in this particular rocket right there. So if we slide it up here, it's just a matter of location. I guess the advantage is if your rocket is really short and you want to do dual deployment and you don't want to have a separate eBay compartment, a separate tube like this tube right there, it would allow you to put the parachute inside the nose cone because there's typically a lot of room inside the nose cone, particularly with the Apogee nylon parachute. So like 48-inch nylon parachute. I can easily get that big parachute into the nose cone with a lot of room to spare. So that's kind of like typically where you would use head-end dual deployment when your rocket's short. If your rocket's long, like the Mako, see on this rocket right here, we can put the eBay right here, but we have the typical shoulder up here. This tube right here is not long enough, so we got, typically the shoulder is 1 body tube diameter. So on the Mako, the body tube diameter is 3 inches, so the shoulder there is 3 inches, and then the shoulder on the eBay is typically also roughly 1 body tube diameter, because that's 1 body tube diameter keeps it from rattling back and forth. It's long enough that it keeps it concentric. But the tube there is I think it's like a 6 or 7 inch tube, so there's not room enough for a parachute. So if you cut the back end of the nose cone off, you can just shove that parachute up in there, and you know, that's an easy modification. So in RockSim, how do you do this? Let me take this kit right here. I'm going to take, okay, so we're going to go to the rocket design components. So here's our 48-inch parachute, and I'm going to move it to a new location. I'm going to put it inside the nose cone. So actually, crap, I'm going to have to delete it and add it back because I want to get rid of this tube right there. So I'm going to delete that whole tube, and when I get rid of the tube, it's also going to get rid of everything on the inside. So really delete this component, and I'm going to say yes. So now I got a short rocket. And there's my eBay. It moved forward. The problem is it's not quite forward enough. So I'm going to first go to my nose cone here, and it's like not a good color where you can see it. So let's make this color darker. Make it reddish. And you still can't see it. But what I wanted to show you was the shoulder right back here. We're going to cut that off, and we're going to use the coupler on the eBay as the shoulder. So I'm going to go to my shoulder settings and clear the shoulder values. And when I did that, it went away. So now we just have the ogive side of the nose cone, and it stops right there. And the shoulder fits inside. Let me go back to the nose cone here, and let me make it 3D. And let me go to the color, and I'm going to go to the opacity, and I'm going to turn down the opacity. So now we can see inside that nose cone. And this blue part right here is the shoulder on the eBay. So now I'm going to go to that eBay. That's the wrong tube coupler. That's the wrong one. That's the wrong one. Where is it? eBay coupler. There it is. I'm going to open that. Let me change the color. It was blue. I'm going to turn it to red because all of our couplers are red except for the 4-inch one, which is brown. I'll leave it that. Okay, so I changed it to red. This is a switch band, so this tube right there, let's make it shorter. So it's no longer going to be an 8-inch. Let's make it a 9-inch tube. And so now we got to change the name to a 9-inch tube. And let's make also this one translucent. Okay, so now we can see inside the rocket. You can see I'm switching back and forth between 3D and 2D. Okay, so I made the nose cone transparent. I made this short body tube, which is right here, is also transparent. This is another tube coupler. So I've got a switch band, I've got the coupler here, and then the base of the nose cone. And you can see they just line up. So the coupler is now the shoulder of the nose cone. It kind of like does dual purpose there. And okay, so now let me go back to 2D. So we have one parachute back here, this orange, let's see, can I get right there? That's the small parachute. And let me open it up and say it's an 18-inch drogue parachute. 18-inch drogue parachute. And the color is orange. Aren't you glad I didn't say red? So now this mass object right here is the eBay sled and the electronics. So now I need a parachute up in the nose cone. So, oops. So if you click on the nose cone, you'll see that I can't add a parachute there. So this is the trick that you're going to have to do here. Now I can, if I go to the next component down, is the switch band. And normally you wouldn't put a parachute in there, but I'm going to put a parachute in there because it will let me. So my parachute button is right here, so I'm going to click on that. And this time I want that 48-inch nylon parachute. And you can see it added it right there. Let me go back to 2D. It's pretty big right there. If I make the thickness a little bit smaller, 0.9. Typically that makes it smaller. There we go. I didn't make it small enough. 0.3. Okay, so here's the parachute. And now I'm going to change the position of that parachute. I'm just going to slide it. See, it's only letting me slide it backwards because right now I'm putting it into this component right there where my cursor is. And it won't allow me to use the slider bar. But the other trick is I can put in any number right here in the location that I want. So let me put in a negative 10 inches and then hit the tab key and you'll see that it slid forward. And we're not quite forward enough. So let's make it minus 15 inches. And that's kind of too far, so maybe 14. Okay, so now we put the parachute up there. We also need to put a shock cord in there. So, and a shock cord is a mass object. See, there's no button that says shock cord. So for a shock cord, you use a mass object. And you can put a mass object inside of a nose cone. So I don't have to do that same trick. So I'm going to cancel out of the database. I'm going to call this a shock cord. And I'm going to change the classification to shock cord. And I select my material. I'm looking for tubular nylon. That will work. That's 3/8. That's a little skinny. Do I got a 1/2 inch? There we go. Oops. 1/2 inch tubular Kevlar. That will work. And then the length, I'm going to make it, typically when you put a shock cord in a rocket, this is dual deployment, you're going to have 2 lengths, a short one and a long one. You always want to do the long one for the parachute that opens first, because at that point the rocket's going to be moving fast. Once the small parachute is out, now the rocket's moving slow and you don't need a big long one, so you can use a short one. So I'm going to make this one 10 feet. And so right now it's putting it right there, and I'm going to move the location to here. So this is my bulkhead on the coupler, and then this is an inside tube that keeps that bulkhead from going inside. This is typical of the Apogee 4-inch diameter eBay kit. And I'll say okay. Okay, so basically now we have head-end dual deployment setup. We have a parachute up in the nose cone and a parachute in the back. My rocket is still stable. Here's my center of gravity. Here's the center of pressure, even with this big J motor installed. And there looks to be enough room in front of the engine for the parachute. And then here is the back of the eBay. So now it's just a matter of doing dual deployment. So flight events, again, we have our 18-inch drogue parachute set at Apogee, and then this one, this was a 48-inch. And we're going to set that one to an altitude of 500 feet. And starting state, still 96 inches. Everything stays the same. We've got wind coming from the south. From the west at 8 miles an hour. And I'll hit the flight profile, and we'll just take a look at this launch. Okay. So remember, I left my rocket being translucent. So you're seeing all the stuff on the inside here. So it's kind of weird. Where am I launching from? I have no idea where I am. This right here is a compass, so I'm going to swing it around so that the black arrow points up. And I'm just trying to figure out what part of the... Okay, so here's Chicago. Okay, so it looked like I'm in somewhere in Iowa. And when you lose your launch pad, just click over, or the home button, it'll take you right back to where we were. I zoomed in too close though. I want to see a trajectory view. Swing the north around again. Okay, so my rocket, my rocket is right there at the tip of my arrow. And when we launch it, you can see the rocket taking off. It's going high. I need to zoom out. We're at 4,000 feet, 4,500, 5,000 feet. We're slowing down. We're going to probably make 6,000 feet. 63. It's getting really close to Apogee. There's Apogee. So at Apogee, the parachute came out. So let's stop it right there and zoom in. Find the rocket. Clicking that button right there. Zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. Okay, so there is our small drogue parachute. And then when it gets down to 500 feet, the parachute should change. Oops. Find the rocket. I'm just going to move things along to where we get to close to 500 feet. So I'm looking up in the top left corner to my altitude. Okay, so here's 528. Find the rocket. Okay, so there's the rocket. And if we go one step further, 499, and oops, I lost the rocket again. And now we have a bigger parachute. So right here is when the big parachute came out. I can tell that because the trajectory line changed. So that is the question on head-end dual deployment. We have Dr. Disco says, may have missed this somewhere, so excuse me if this has been discussed previously. Is there a way to account for a spill hole in a parachute? Okay, so that's a good question. So let's go back to our rocket design components. And let's find that big parachute. So to find it, you highlight it here, and then it will get selected up here. We can open it. And I'm going to change the name to the 48-inch parachute so I know the difference. So here in RockSim, if you go down 2 columns or 2 rows, you have a spill hole diameter. So let's put in a 15-inch spill hole, and then hit the tab key. And so now the parachute has a spill hole in it. And we click OK. And let's run another simulation. Same thing, we're going to be still launching from Iowa. We have 2 different flights here. So this is the last one we ran, and this is the new one. And I want to compare these, so you select both of them, and then come up here through to the launch visualizer button. Oh, it always does that when I go up into that corner. Okay, so there's the rocket on the pad. I'm going to launch it, and there's actually 2 rockets here. They follow identical paths. So now they're starting to deviate, and they're not deviating too much. So why are they deviating? The reason is when you cut a spill hole in it, the weight has changed. And so this one right here is probably the one with the spill hole. But right now, these are the drogue parachute. We didn't cut a spill hole in the drogue, just the main parachute. So until we get down to 500 feet, we're not going to see much difference. And they seem to be falling pretty pretty close. Okay, so now you'll see that, let's see if I can rotate this around. And let me zoom out, see if we can see a difference. Okay, so now we can see the dog leg. And if we back it up, oh, come on. And I want to zoom in. I still want to see the rockets. Okay, so there's the rockets coming down. So we think that this one right here is the one with the spill hole. So once the main parachute opens up, this one's going to fall faster because it does have that spill hole in it. So does it overtake it and actually land first? It's really hard to see. I can't tell. Yeah, I think that's the one with the spill hole. Because it did come down a little bit faster, it landed a little bit shorter. Let's see if we can find the velocity at touchdown. So I double clicked on the row, and so what I'm looking for is recovery system data. Okay, so here is the velocity at landing, and in the Y direction, which is the coming down side, is at 15.52 miles per hour. If I go to this one was at 14.97 miles per hour. So that one is slower because it's a lower speed, lower descent speed. So that tells me that the bottom one, had that spill hole, and it did land at a higher speed because of that spill hole in there. Pretty good question. Okay, Goldspot 804 says, I'm trying to run a simulation on the tuner rocket that's in the free plans book, but it doesn't allow me to choose a recommended engine. Is it because it is a two-stage or something else? And the answer is yes. It's because it's a two-stage. Let me open, I don't think I have that one in here, but let me find a different rocket that's a two-stage. I'm just trying to remember which one's two-stage. Are there other rockets? How come I'm not seeing all my rockets? Blue Streak, Rotary Revolution, Slow-Mo, Texas Twister, Apprentice, Frit. Is the Frit a two-stage rocket? Save my changes to that? No. No, the Frit is not a two-stage rocket. Initial Katana, Maker's Dungeon, Midge, Mini Condor, Peregrine, Research, Express, Spec. Okay, here's a two-stage rocket. So normally, to find the recommended motors, what you do is you just click up here, go prepare for launch, and then the button right here is recommended motors, but you see it's grayed out. I can't select the motors for this. So what do you do? That's your question, right? How do you pick motors? You got to do it in two stages. You got to pick the motor for the booster stage by itself, and then you got to pick the motor for the upper stage by itself. So how do you do that? Okay, so we're going to go to the rocket design attributes, Right now it says 2-stage, and we need to switch that to 1-stage. But when we switch it to 1-stage, it's going to delete all the parts in the booster stage. So what I need to do is to take all those parts in the booster stage and move them to the upper stage. So to do that, we're going to go to the Rocket Design components. We're going to select the booster tube right there. We're going to copy it. So I'm going to hit my right click on my mouse, copy, and then I'm going to come up to the last component here. I'm going to hit paste. So again, right click, then paste, and you'll notice that it put another booster stage right here in the middle. But this booster stage is actually connected to the top stage. And this one down here is the other booster stage. So if I click on that one, so now I can come back over here to the Rocket Design attributes and change this to a single stage rocket. And it's going to ask, do I want to do this? I'm going to say yes. So even though it looks like a 2-stage rocket, it's going to behave like a single stage rocket because all the components are in the upper stage. Now to fly this and to determine what motors, first we need to have a motor in the upper stage because that motor has weight and we're lifting it at the same time. So we need to know what the weight of a typical motor is. And I would suggest using the heaviest motor that you realistically are going to put in there. So if we go to prepare for flight, it's showing 2 motors right here, 2 motor tubes. And this is the bottom one, this is the top one. And if I double click here, I'm going to put in the biggest motor out of this list, and I can tell that this is the biggest motor. Well, the A3, I don't know which weighs the most, but this one has the most impulse. So I'll select that one and click OK. Actually, okay, so what I wanted to know was the mass of that motor. So the mass right now, I'm going to get a calculator here. Where's my calculator? Calculator app. Not the calendar app, I want the calculator app. CALC, calculator app. Okay, so I'm going to take this number right here, 21.562. 21.562. Basically, I'm just trying to find out the weight of the motor. So I got the weight of the whole rocket with the motor, and then I'm going to take the motor out, and the difference should be the new weight. Let's see, can we see this on the screen? I'm trying to move this over to get the calculator over here. Okay, so now I got this. I'm going to go back up here to the motor, and I'm going to clear all. Click OK. And now my mass is 13.062. So now I'm going to subtract 13.062 equals. So this is 8.5 grams is the mass of that motor. So I need to put 8.5 grams back here, and the easiest way to do that is to use a mass object. So I'm going to select that body tube, come up here to mass object, and I'm going to call this the fake motor. Why won't it let me click up here? That's weird. Won't let me click anywhere. Oh, it's looking in the database. Cancel out of that. Now I can do this. Fake motor mass. And I know the mass is 8.5 grams. And right now I put it right there. We need to move it back here. Approximately right there. Okay, so that accounts for the weight of that motor. Okay, so now we can run a simulation and we can find the recommended motors. So then you come back up here and, oh, the other thing that we needed to do is to turn this one off. You can't have more than one motor mount. So you got to uncheck that. So basically I take that tube and I say it's no longer a motor mount, and click OK. And now, hopefully, there it is. Now the recommended motor shows up. And now I just click on that, say use the recommended conditions, and it finds when it's done, it comes over here to the recommended motors tab, and it shows me the 4 motors that it ran. 3 of them are recommended. But this is a single stage rocket. So as a single stage rocket, this would probably be the one that's going to get me, well, this one right here, the A3 is going to get me the highest altitude. So what I want to do, so you can only do this in RockSim Pro. You can't do this in, everything I did up to this point you can do in RockSim and in RockSim Pro. But now when I'm in RockSim Pro, which is up here, I have some options. And one of the options is, now I want to figure out how high this rocket's going to go approximately when I'm selecting the motor for the upper stage. So, I need to make a screenshot. Let me see here. See if this has the information that I'm looking at. What I'm looking for is altitude at burnout. Let's see. I don't have an altitude at burnout, but I can get it. If you come up here to the graphs, I can do altitude, and I want to do this when the rocket, when final engine burnout occurs. Plot the graph. Okay, so altitude is the red. So here's the red line right here. And so it looks to be about 100, 10, 5, 10, 15, 125. We'll call it like 140 feet. Okay, so now I need to go back to my original rocket. And I'm opening the Nike Hercules just to clear this out. Do I want to, and I don't want to save my changes, and say no. Now I'm going to go back to my rocket, and it was the spec. Click open. I don't want to change that. Okay, so here's the rocket again. So this time I am going to delete the bottom stage. So this time I'm going to go here to number stages and take it to a single stage. Click yes. And now it's deleted all the components in the bottom stage. And now I can run a new simulation. This time I don't have to add a mass because we're going to use the actual mass of the motor. So I'm going to go choose an engine. Actually, I wanted to go to recommended motors. Use my recommended. Okay, I'm going to use my values. Oops, ignore that. I screwed that up. So I'm going to delete all these. Delete those, yes. I need to reset my new conditions. So my new conditions is the starting state. And we said the starting altitude was, what did we say? It was 445 or 440? No, 140 feet, 145. So I'm going to add 145 to 227. So over here on my calculator, 227 plus 145 equals 372. So my launch altitude is now 372. And I forgot the speed of the rocket as it took off. If I knew what the speed was when it burned out, I would put that velocity here. I don't know, I'm going to say 120, 100 miles an hour. I'm just guessing. So it has a speed when it stages, and it has an altitude before the upper stage comes off. And now I go back to engine selection, use recommend motors, use my values, so it uses my starting velocity, which I think worked, and it didn't find any that worked. Why did not? Let's go back here. Under flight events, deploy at maximum ejection delay. Let's try that again. Recommend motors, use my values. Okay, so now we did get some that are recommended. It didn't like the A10 for some reason. It's probably because the delay is too short. These are marginal, but they worked. So let's do, highlight that row and do a right click, and let's say load engines. And so it loaded the engine. So I'm going to go back here to prepare for launch. See, it loaded that A3-4. I bet I can get a 6. A 6. Starting state, still 100 miles an hour. Under launch conditions, we're still like 145 feet-ish above. And let's do the flight profile just to see what this rocket looks like. Okay, so there's my rocket sitting on the pad. I can't see it. There it is. Zoom out. And actually, the rocket is in the air 145 feet. You can see it's up in the air. And it already has some velocity when it takes off. And when we launch it, you can see it's moving really fast. That's because it had initial velocity. And I'm just speeding it up so it comes down. And I want to look at the flight profile. If I keep zooming out, you'll see, you know, it started in the air. And that long process was how to pick motors for a two-stage rocket. I actually wrote an article on this if you want to see it. And go to How-To and Guides, Pico Flight newsletter, all newsletters, and let's type in, do a find, let's type in two-stage. I gotta type it right. It says twice. Now I'm trying to find the newsletter for you. Picking propellant types, picking motors with the launch visualizer. Oh, it's probably going to take me a while to find it, but I know it's in here somewhere because I remember writing it. Recommend. What happened to recommended liftoff? Shoot. I can't remember what I called it. Oh, here it is. Selecting rocket motors for two-stage rockets. Newsletter 663. Okay. Yeah. So that I would suggest reading that article. Gino145 says, I snagged an Estes Mega Red Max that has 3 motors. All the Sims, even Estes, are for single motor. How to add 3 motor mounts in RockSim. Oh boy. Let's see if I can do this really quick. Mega Red Max. I don't know if we have the Big Red Max. It says a single 29. Okay, I'm going to use this. So first I'm going to download the RockSim file. So I just went on the page, downloaded it. Okay, so Big Red Max. Downloaded this, the file I downloaded. I'm going to say save my changes, no. Okay, so right now this has a single motor mount in it. So we're going to change this to a 3-engine cluster. The question is, I don't think I'm going to get 329s, but I can get 324s in there. So first I got to change those that 29 millimeter engine mount to a 24 body tube. So this is the engine mount. Somebody should call it an engine mount. And I want to go to the database, choose from the database, and I want to find a 24-inch tube. Go back to the general. Okay, so it is a 24 millimeter tube now. Click OK. So now we got a 24 millimeter tube. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to select the motor mount, come over here to this button here that says cluster. Click on cluster, and it's going to bring up the cluster wizard, and click OK. Now we can select what the configuration is for this engine mount. So here you see a 3-engine cluster, and that would work. However, I would recommend not choosing that because the motor tubes are touching each other and you won't be able to get your screw-on engine retainers. So they need to be separated a little bit. And to do that, instead of doing this one, click on this one and then hit the continue button. And now we're going to say the number of tubes in the cluster, instead of 2, we're going to make it 3. And it changed it to 3, but now I'm going to change the cluster radius. You can see when I change that radius, it separates them. And by separating them, now I can put the screw-on engine retainer because it's bigger than a tube. And then hit continue. This screen allows you to rotate them. Doesn't really matter because it's pretty symmetrical. Hit continue. And then this one, it says, okay, I'm done. All right, so now we have 3 cluster tubes. We have 1, 2, 3. And now we can run our simulations. So when you go to run the simulation, you have cluster motor number 1, 2, and 3. You can choose your engine. Let's say it's an Aerotech E20. Let's go 7-second delay. Engine overhang, let's call it 1/4 of an inch. Click OK. So now we have 1 engine loaded. And to load the other ones, the easiest thing to do is just hit load all. And it loads all the motors in there. Under flight events, deploy a maximum injection. Starting state, I'm going to make it back down to that. Launch conditions, I want to change this back to 227. And then hit flight profile, and it will run the simulation. And I can get my maximum altitude here of 1,883 feet. And if I do this, we can see the rocket sitting on the pad. Let's go to a trajectory view. Gets the rocket's right there. We launch it. The rocket's taking off. It looks like it's going mostly straight. Yeah, it's a pretty good flight. I like that. Okay, there's the parachute ejected, and the rocket's coming down. And when it lands over here. Everything seems to be landing in this cemetery. This is a magnet for rockets. And again, here's the 3 engines that you can see: E20-7, E20W-7, E20-27. So that was pretty quick. It's not hard. It's just you just hit that cluster button right there in the middle, and it kind of walks you through it. Gold Spot says, awesome, thank you. I'm having such a time getting motors that RockSim said were safe. Yeah. Geno 145, even though yours is a 4-inch Red Max, this is a 3-inch, the process is identical. You start with the RockSim file, find the motor tube, and then click the cluster button, and it'll work. I just chose it because I don't have a 4-inch diameter Red Max RockSim file to start with. So I knew I had a 3-inch, so that's what I used, a 3-inch. Oh, all good questions today. Thank you all for being here. We are now 3:06, so we're a little bit over as normal. Yeah, so thank you again for being here. I think I'm going to be here next week. I'm not 100% positive. It's that time of year again where my daughter is diving, and I'm not sure of her schedule. She starts back to school. She's actually at a contest right now, but my wife is there, so I don't have to be there. Although I wish I was there because it's in South Florida. And the weather right there looks really nice. Yeah, she sent videos, and it was blue skies and 80 degrees. And here in Colorado, it's overcast, windy. We got 8 inches of fresh snow on the ground, which I got to go shovel. And it's 27 degrees. So, yeah. So that's my day, the rest of the day. I hope you have a great week. And if you're launching tomorrow, I hope you have a great launch. And I'll give you a countdown, and we'll get out of here. So, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go out and launch something.